G'day citizens, welcome to the Inforunners. I'm Execute, joined this morning by Algared. That was weird. What's over there, Algared? What were you looking at? You were looking at, like, what is over there? I caught you looking!
My monitor.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, you had this weird thing with your eyes going off to one side. I was freaking out.
I was just glancing at the side as I was just changing the size of my monitor screen so that...
Sure. There's a naked lady over there, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely.
An uwu girl. Alright.
Yeah, one of those uwu girls, that's right. I've had a bit too much Evercrack.
Yes. Alright, so we're going to be watching ISC Alpha 4.0 Conflict Resolution. I think you can tell from the thumbnail this is going to be all about guns. Or guns and the new arena commander modes or something to that effect.
That's blowing things up.
Something like that. Yeah, maybe some. Actually, some destruction would be cool. I could get behind them talking about some destruction, but we'll see where it goes.
As long as it's not just blowing things up with A1 bombs, but more the destruction of the buildings and then the need to repair.
And you made this way deeper than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was just going to be all about shooting and the new crosshairs and stuff like that. But
possibly. We'll see. That's a bit of hopium on my part, but
yeah. All right. Well, let's see. I'm just going to check. The auto filter, always forget sometimes, so I'm going to do that really quick before we get started. Yeah, cool, she's off. All right, let's go.
What's the word I'm thinking of?
Murderous.
It's not. It's like it's not like, you don't want to say immersive, but it's visceral is probably a bit too much of a big word. Is like, I'm thinking engaging, I suppose.
Tell us what you really think of the backers.
I suppose engaging is the word, right? Like, you're going to get a much more, like, engaging experience.
He doesn't think you know the word visceral, people.
Well, it's a lot of syllables for a bloke from Coventry. We have a 2-syllable cat where I'm from.
So I think he outdid Lando there. I don't know if that's true, but he self-deprecated, if you know, in comedy, and made it funny. So I think he did really well. Anyway. Damn, that looks good.
That looked like, yeah.
As the Pyrostar system is lawless, this means that combat can break out anywhere. Social spaces can turn into combat spaces in the blink of an eye.
The main experience we're trying to build is something that feels a bit more like wild and not the typical thing that you've seen in Stanton. So the themes are a bit more chaotic than you'd expect. So for example, if you're shopping and then someone decides to take a firefight with you because they think your armor's cool and they want it, you can jump over that kiosk, sit behind that cover and return fire. So you're basically turning this shopping mall, which you were at previously, into a combat zone.
These spaces were built modularly with various different overlays that had to stitch together, but also make sure that it accounted for a fair combat fight and easy navigation for both vehicles and any other light elements that you want to be able to bring to these places. As for the trade posts, because of their ever-shifting inventory of things they could sell, could buy, things being on display, this changes the layout of the trade post itself.
Taking everyday objects in the trading post, like weapon terminals, something that you would purchase, would then, as soon as a fight is initiated, that becomes cover. You would be using these things to help yourself to not get shot by the enemy, essentially.
So you could be ducking behind cover behind a ship component that you want to purchase for your ship later, but first you've got to take care of this rival gang attacking you. Then afterwards you can decide, hey, I need to grab a multi-tool for this other salvage mission I need to go to. So after the firefight is finished, you go to the counter, pick up your multi-tool with a salvage component, pay for it, chip's done, and off you head out.
I've got a question.
Yeah, go for it.
You're using your terminal for cover, and then you're just using your terminal to make your purchase. Where's the damage? Like, to me, that is immersive. That's not immersive, that is actually immersion breaking.
Yeah, kind of. Like, I'm thinking at the very least, you'd expect things to be flying around that are getting shot and stuff, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but you'd also expect, if you're using that terminal, but you're using, the chaos terminal as cover when you're in a firefight, when it's finished, that terminal should be shot to hell.
Yeah,
it shouldn't be working.
It should need repair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, no, you'll just go to the terminal afterwards and, hey, yeah, presto, I can buy my stuff. Like,
yeah. Well, that works for now, but down the road, that shouldn't be the case. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I don't know. Just again, it sounds like they're relying on immersive, well, not immersive gameplay, emergent gameplay, like that. Okay, cool. All you're saying is that essentially the armistice zone is turned off. That's all I heard in the last 2 minutes.
The armistice zone is turned off. You can fight wherever you like, and then jump over counters and use them for cover, and then go back to shopping as normal when your opponents are dead.
Yeah, be more cautious in Pyro. All right.
Taking what we've learned and the setups from Squadron 42 to Pyro, for example, NPCs having specific archetypes and having more specific classes, using things like defend areas and keeping NPCs in specific areas. Pyro, we're taking that to the next level, where we're having more specific areas used for defenses and things like that, and making areas stay in NPCs. We're also using something called schedule areas, which basically enforces NPCs to stay within a certain vicinity in combat. For 4.0, with server meshing, we expect higher server frame rates, so the idea is that you'll get a much more engaging AI experience. Let's talk about some of those classes. We have what we call our techie, which typically features light armor and SMGs, and they have more aggressive traits. So they're focused on getting close to you and flushing you out. Similar with our CQC class, which typically has shotguns, and obviously they have the much higher aggression version. You've seen us talk about traits at CitizenCon, and this is putting that work in the persistent universe and allowing us to create more dynamic situations.
I wonder with the personality types. You remember way back when?
Yep.
How deep that's going to go over time, because they're talking about taking ones from a single player game and moving them into a multiplayer game. It's going to become much more evident over time, almost straight away. You'll be able to look at them and tell how they're going to act. You know, what are the wild card personalities? And you know what I'm talking about. Like they had massive lists of these things.
They did. They had characters who would hang around for a little bit and then POQ because they're out for self-preservation. You know, ones who are just in for money they can get. But you name it, they even had a host of these.
They even had life experience things that these people had been through that could determine how they'd act in future dates. Like if they'd been in a particular war, like they're a war vet, or if they were like more of a bookworm and stuff like that. So they had things that would change, like almost like an outlying trait that would just make, even if they're the first two are exactly the same as the other guy, this third one would change how they act. And I just thought that was really clever because again, that essentially, 999 different personalities makes it really hard to get a duplicate type of thing.
And it also makes it, the more of those you have, the harder it makes it to preempt or work out exactly how that NPC is going to react.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
I hope I again, from what I'm hearing, taking what you had in Squadron, they even said that, like what we learned in Squadron, and I hope it improves over time. That's what I'm hearing, and I want to hear them say, but we're going to add more over time. That's the only thing I haven't heard, so we'll see. Maybe he's about to say it. We'll see.
We're doing other things as well. For example, we're making NPCs hold up in rooms with shotguns and things like that. So when you have to eliminate a specific target and you're going into a room, those guys are specifically holding up there, and you're kind of having a tug of war of them in close quarters environments versus them just kind of walking around the area.
Would have made it really good for a grenade too. just saying.
Juggernaut enemy, you'll have seen that. That's the incredibly highly healthed LMG enemy, which ignores all shooting restrictions, can focus on pushing the player and shooting them out, and basically being that slow-moving target that walks towards you. Similar, including things like Copions into battle. One of the factions has pet Copions, and Copions fight alongside them, and that is fantastic because it gives you a different silhouette when you're fighting these factions. You have to shoot a lot lower, you have to be a lot more conscious because they're a lot quicker than a human being, and just these nice little new additions to combat. We're integrating more things in terms of having people who are more aggressive, having different factions, having different accuracy profiles, and making the factions in Pyro feeling a bit more versatile and different to when you fight each other. These encounters are a lot more crafted and bespoke. Pyro is a system of conflict, and in that...
Damn. All right, I'm going back. That is going to be very, very popular armor set.
Pyro is a system.
That reminds me of the, you remember the Laser Skull one they never ever ended up bringing out? Even Osiris used his icon for quite a while. Osiris Frost. So yeah, that'll be there. I don't know. That speaks to me.
The updated version of it, I think.
Yeah. Well, that speaks to me. I know it doesn't speak to you because I know your tastes are a little different from mine. But yeah, I think you would agree. There are some people that will really grab onto that one.
Some people would love that.
Yeah.
Like, it's not me, as you're right, but that kind of silhouetted.
There's no top hat and monocle. That's why it's not for you. I know you.
No, I actually don't like the top hat and monocle because they don't go with anything.
Yes, this is true.
But yeah.
All right.
Of conflict, and in there's many factions vying over control. When you arrive at Pyro, one of the first things you want to do is enlist one of the two primary factions. The Headhunters have more tiered structured armor, which you can acquire. The more higher tiered the armor is, the more tanky and resistant those enemies are.
As a Headhunter, you might be hovering around the Sunset Mesa, trying to think of how you're going to get close by. You would land your ships under the cover of darkness. You're taking your ground vehicle to the outpost. You're then getting out, trying to sneak past their outer perimeter, and eventually navigating your way down to either the gas tanks or to the main landing pit itself, and finding the exact critical point that would break the entire operation at the scrapyard.
Citizens of Prosperity have much higher and deadly accuracy. They also have more civil weaponry versus criminal weaponry as well, so you'll see things more like bearings and so on and so forth, versus other more lawless factions which typically have things like Castak arms.
If you're aligned with the Citizens for Prosperity, you might be given a mission to go to Rustville and actually head down into the canyons and try to steal some of their scrap from their derelict ships in the base of the canyons. Because of Pyro 1's unique terrain where Rustville is located, you will need to get into your ground vehicle again, navigate through all the twisting canyons and ravines, and use your multi-tool to steal as much scrap as possible to end up sabotaging the unlimited supply of scrap that the Headhunters at Rustville have got.
I do like there's a little bit of a new mission type in there, but other than that, it does feel a little samey to the Outpost missions. I don't know if you feel the same there, but again, we haven't played it, so we...
It does. Like, it's nice to see them actually making it, yes, you want to take your vehicle in because, the air cover's too strong, or you...
Agree with you on that. That's different too.
So that is a nice approach, but, yeah, it does seem samey.
Yeah.
Go in, shoot.
Well, I hope, again, as long as it's a little bit different from the last, and you can start to see that, everything they learn here, you want to see it... Not all of it, but a lot of it also retaken back into, recopied across the rest of the game, essentially.
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
So regardless if you side with Headhunters or Citizens of Prosperity, you will both be able to fight the Xenothreat.
These hate everybody. They are operating out of Pyro 2, 3, and Pyro 6.
The Xenothreat is more what you'd think of as a PMC in terms of how you fight them and how they behave. They're a lot more cautious, they're a lot more careful, they won't try rush out of cover, they play a lot more defensively, and we can use our trait system to inform how they make combat decisions. So where you'd expect someone like the Headhunters to be a bit more, run at you, push you out, the Xenothreat characters will be a lot more cautious and stationary and prefer to stay in cover and take long shots. And they'll have a much higher accuracy profile, but they'll shoot for much shorter durations, so they conserve that ammo a lot more.
So it's interesting how it's almost moving into, like we were saying about the profiles before, it's more of a, like, I've been trained a certain way, so I will act a certain way, where previously it was almost more individualistic. This is more like, essentially, the people type of thing. I do find that a different approach. My only concern there is it brings it back into them all being kind of more same. You know what I mean?
Yep. Because I'm going to Xenothreat. I know, they're all going to be this way.
Yeah. So I can actually even tailor my weapon set, my armor, and things like that to combat their sameness.
Yeah. I hope that what we're talking about really is that overlaying third level, so you've still got the other factors.
Yeah, I hope so
that
too.
Overlaying one that kind of influences their behaviour at that point, but then they've got the, I've got a family and kids, so I want to POQ, that type of thing,
Yeah.
Yeah,
we'll see. Well, I'd almost hope that it was almost like a fourth column, so it's like these are the people I trained with, so I'm a bit different again. Yeah.
Well, the other thing that's interesting is that like games like Guild Wars 2, games like Dark Age of Camelot, they tended to have, if you were in the PvP area, you tend to have 3 factions, and it's really the PvP area. Like, that's what Pyro is. If you're thinking in terms of those games, this is the area where you go in and do your PvP, and it looks like we've got 3 factions, and they, Prosperity and the Headhunters fight each other, and they both fight Xenothreat, which probably means all 3 of them are enemies and fight each other. But
I would read it slightly differently to what you just said. I would see this as low security, as Stanton is more high security, and then we've probably got to get another system that's in the middle somewhere. But your point is noted. But I don't know. Is that how you see it, or have I just misseen how you've said it?
Well, in what we've got, it is low. It's certainly low security compared to Stanton.
Yeah.
The only thing that
allows for the PvP you were talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think
we're on the same page.
And I think the only difference from what I initially said is I don't think they've indicated we can join Xenothreat, because they had everybody, and they seem to imply we could only either join the Prosperity mob or the Headhunters. So
you would hope in time there was a way you could join Xenothreat, because I think back to Freelancer, and there was ways. It was hard and it was a long slog, but there was a way you could get into Xenothreat, and there was tech that you could get from them that you couldn't get from anywhere else, so to speak.
And I'm sure there are lots of Metherites in our community who would love to join Xenothreat, but I'll be honest, I'm not one of them.
Maybe you're infiltrating for a mission of some description. We'll have to wait and see. All right.
A place we're going to fight Xenothreat is at the Last Ditch settlement on Pyro 2. Last Ditch is another large, lawless settlement.
We have a town close by it, and then different mining operations between the village.
I actually flew into the Last Ditch. It was one of the first places I went to in the preview test, and I noticed the tower because it's what they had the Banded Merchantman at CitizenCon attached to. And as soon as I got there, boy, did I get the shit shot out of me. And I now understand why. I didn't know at the time, but now I do.
And the mining tower.
And it's kind of a callback to the history of the system, where there was once these mega corporations in Pyro that would do these large-scale mining operations.
It's a vital part in the Pyro ecosystem for these outlaw gangs to control. So we can also see here that there is fortifications, but they're mainly around the village from which these gangs operate.
But interestingly, it's almost built on 3 levels. There's like a main habitation area on top of this bluff, and then just down from that is the refinery area. And then right at the base of the super large mega mining structure is a small sort of extraction area in an old kind of quarry. Should make for some very interesting fights, especially as you move between those sort of 3 sub-locations within the larger location.
I hope that the player will get a sense of trying to stop Xenothreat with their evil deeds.
Shadowfall is another Xenothreat outpost. It's quite a large Xenothreat outpost that lives in the shadow of this mountain on Pyro 3 and kind of just sits on the shore of this lake.
This location hits different. It's a location just like the outlaw locations, but we can feel that things have been turned up further. It is not only is it chaos, but it is now a structured chaos.
There's fire and there's these spiked barricades that make up the place around it.
Within the homestead location, we have a lot of elevated positions that the player will look to. We'll see that there is a lot of scaffolding build up, and it feels like a fortified position.
So in 3.23, we added sniper NPCs to the distribution centers. In 4.0, we're going further on that and adding specific watch nests and things like that to keep these snipers in. So you'll have to be careful and keep an eye on for these outposts and these high elevation where snipers could essentially hit you from. How we're valid.
The other thing I'm noticing is they don't talk about us counter snipering, because you could literally just, if you had a silencer, for example, or a sniper, take one of them out, then go up their tower and use that tower to take out the other snipers and the guys on the ground, which brings sniping gameplay in, which is not something other than them just being far away. It allows you to use it in regular gameplay sense as well, which is something different we haven't seen yet.
I would have also expected that Xeno threat being, given what we see in their armaments and weaponry that we see when they make their incursions into Stanton, that their settlements not to be so rustic or as
I would
where they've established themselves. I'd expect them to be better kept, or have that more order, not that kind of frontier spikes in the ground,
especially
buildings.
Especially with the military background, you think that they would take better care of things because, again, they were more structured and conserving ammo and all that type of stuff. But maybe these are ones that have just been fought over so much that that's the way they are. But it also makes me wonder, is there other bases that are more secretive that we don't know about that are more like that? Also, you got to realize that Pyro just didn't ever really have the infrastructure. All the companies that came in there, they were more mining and resource related. So maybe they never did have a big military type of base feel. So I don't know. You know the war more than me, but it was never really as established as Stanton was. Yeah.
I'd have to say I'm not that up on that.
Okay.
But I would expect that feels like the case because of the way the neutron star is.
Yeah.
But then knowing what Xeno threat bring into Stanton every time they make an incursion, there must be some shipyard somewhere.
Yeah, well, especially if they've got
somewhere in another system. But
yeah, well, they've got an Idris. How the hell do you maintain an Idris? They need a shipyard of some description. So yeah.
So
I guess we'll find out. We'll have to find out.
Those types of areas I'd expect to be again more ordered and more better kept. But they did kind of hint at that, like these are chaos, but ordered chaos, and it still feels too rustic and too frontier to me. But that's just me.
Sounds like a really weird D&D campaign with all the different terms that don't make sense. What's it? Chaotic neutral? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever you say. Right. All right. Here we go.
In combat is ensuring that the players can have a lot more stealthy approach, have a lot more overview of what their targets are doing and where they're going.
So you could use elevation to plan things out, such things as a comms tower, such things as cliff edges. You can basically survey over the trade post or the outpost itself. You could look at key things. Does it have automated weapon systems there? Does it have primary, secondary, and tertiary pathing to allow the player in?
It's all about defensive structures, about obstructing the player in order to get to its objective, with a lot of anti-air turrets littered around the location.
You are going to need to use your aerial support to take out these defensive measures so that you can even get people close to the location. Eventually, you can pull in your ground vehicles, drop off an elite squad. You can stealth through the scrapyard, you can stealth...
I'm hearing a lot of teamwork here, Algared, unless you're hearing different, but that's what
I'm hearing... bring in your Spartan with your party, your elite squad, and
so instead of it's just you on foot with yourself or a couple other mates, this is sounding like almost an org activity, almost. Right.
Yeah, well, if you think of the last Xeno threat missions, a lot of them you did need to have, certainly the one where we were gathering the information, you needed to go in a group. You couldn't do it solo just because of the need to run backwards and forwards and do stuff. And I get the feeling they're kind of building on that idea of that group gameplay.
Yeah, it needs to be an escalation of what was previously done, especially if it's Xenothreat. What's the next level of Xenothreat? And I agree with you. That sounds like this. Yeah.
But you also notice they even had the players going up in a tower and using the tower.
Well, that's what I was talking about before with the sniper stuff. So it just
So they've obviously anticipated that because they were doing it themselves and saying, you could climb up the tower and.
All right.
Via the nearby lake, comes through the derelict outpost section, finally clearing out Xenothreat once and for all.
Well, until they come back.
From another outpost.
It's definitely a place that will just feel very hostile to the player. And you feel like this is a location that has a purpose within the universe and that it's important for these outlaw gangs to protect what they have going right here.
In 4.0, you can expect a lot more crafted, engaging combat experiences, with new archetypes, enemies using new weapons, fighting animals alongside humans, and all sorts of absolute crazy that you expect from Pyro.
Eradicate!
All right, Bosch.
Well, what more can I add? We always knew there'd be a lot of combat in Pyro,
But with the addition of more AI archetypes from Squadron and the anticipated performance improvements generated by server meshing, we're hoping to deliver an experience that's more dangerous, engaging, and heck, I'm not from Coventry, so I can say it, visceral for our players. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. Thanks for letting us share the people and process of game development with you. And we'll see you all here next week for a look at characters and creatures in 4.0.
Geez, I wonder if we're going to see space cows next week. What do you reckon, Algared? Space cows?
Possible.
Hopefully we get a new creature next week.
It'd be nice to see something different.
Yes, it would. Right, that was...
Combat.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest, it didn't really have anything outside what I kind of expected. It's just a step up from what we'd seen previously. I think the biggest bit of information was kind of right at the end there, where it looks like it's, as you kind of said, like an escalation, excuse me, of Xeno threat. So it's basically more kind of group orientated and org orientated, which is really cool, actually. Almost more towards raids, but outside. Do you know what I mean? Like how they talked about the raids. It is more like raids, which is really interesting. So that's their version of raids.
And certainly taking on Xeno threat ties in with that idea of, Xeno threat. We know have supposedly got control of this. They're the one that's the dominant faction in the system.
Yeah.
So they're kind of calling the shots, and the other factions are trying to overturn them. But because of that, you can see you take out a Xeno threat outpost, and then within a reset, they're going to come back and take it. And so essentially, they're almost using that third thing to constantly reset stuff. So it's interesting. So yeah, when one dominates for too long, they'll come in and just take it over again, I reckon. All right, let us know your thoughts. Well, what would you like to hear in the comments, Algared, specifically? As I said, the only real thing I kind of took out of it is it's like Pyro's versions of raids is still around these updated outposts. Is there anything else that we miss, I guess, is what I'd ask in the comments, because that's all I saw. It certainly does seem to see they've got there seem to be that progression from the individual to the small group to the almost larger group doing those raids. And what do you guys think? Have we missed it? What would you like to see in combat resolution or conflict resolution? Do you think that they should be having, or hope that down the track we'll see facilities get wrecked if you're having a firefight in the shop, so that you can't actually use it until it's repaired? All of those little niggly things.
All right, then, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Thank you to everyone that went the extra mile on Patreon at the end of the video. All right, with that, then, he's been Algared.
He's been Execute, and we're out of here. Take care.
See you, citizens.